Hello students, welcome back to the daily news analysis. I hope you all are doing great. So we'll be resuming again our daily current affairs sessions with your educator Prithviraj Singh. Today we'll be understanding the important news articles of 26th April 2022. Guys, the recent demolition drive by the government over the western Delhi area of Jahangirpuri is actually surfacing the news, and many unauthorized the people who live on the pavements, the pavement dwellers, their properties are being demolished by the government. So there was an article on the Hindu about the Olga Thallis judgment. So this was a very important article, and in this judgment in Olga Thallis versus the Bombay Municipal Corporation, the court, the Supreme Court said that right to livelihood is one of the integral part of Article 21. We all know, guys, that Article 21 talks about right to life and liberty, right? So we know that Article 21 talks about right to life and liberty. It is the most widely interpreted article, students. Under this article, it's being interpreted by the Supreme Court that right to livelihood is also an integral part of right to life, because a person who is being deprived of his livelihood, the opportunities for earning his livelihood, would actually in turn be the deprivation of his right to life and liberty. So very important, in Olga Thallis versus Bombay Municipal Corporation, this case was there in the year 1985, and here the court clearly said that the right to livelihood was an integral component of the right to life under Article 21. So this judgment, I would say, the 30-year-old judgment could become the framework which would help the government and which would help the people to actually claim their rights. They said that the pavement dwellers, do occupy the public places, but they do so because of the necessity, because they don't have the the dwelling, they don't have the home to live. So that is the reason why they have to sit in some places on the pavements, right? Now, at the same time, the court recently has also said that the sufficient opportunity has to be given, before the demolition drive has to be started. That means, because there is a principle of natural justice which says that every party must be heard, right? So in this sense, their concerns must be taken up. The government must actually, properly ask and communicate with the people whose rights would be violated, and should give a reasonable opportunity, to depart before the force is used to expel them, right? So that means the sufficient time has to be given before the bulldozers and the JCB machines are used to demolish the shops or the properties, as it was been seen in the case of Jahangirpuri in Delhi. Very important article. It says that the pavement dwellers, they live out of sheer helplessness, and not with the object of offending, insulting, or annoying anyone, right? So this is their helplessness, right? And because they live and earn on footpaths, because they have small jobs to nurse in the city, and there is nowhere else to live, right? So guys, as a student of law examination, there is high possibility of a question being asked that which among the following judgments of the Supreme Court talk about right to livelihood as an integral part of right to life and liberty. So the answer would be Olga Thallis versus Bombay Municipal Corporation, 1985. Very, very important. So they may ask you this question, and there is strong possibility of it being asked in the examination, right? Right to livelihood. So here we are clear with right to livelihood. We are clear with Article 21 and Olga Tellis versus Bombay Municipal Corporation. I hope it is clear. So please go through this article. It is very important. Now the next news article, which again surfaced in the Hindu, is the dispute over the Kuril Islands. Guys, Kuril Islands are situated in the Pacific Ocean, and it is a dispute between the Russian Federation and the Japan, right? So Kuril Island is sandwiched between in the Sea of Okhotsk and the Pacific Ocean, as you can see from the image. So this is Japan, and this is an island group of Japan called as Hokkaido Island, right? So Hokkaido Island also has prefectural capitals, and it is a part of Japan, and here is Russia, right? Now this region that you see, this one, this is the part of Kuril Island. And this island group has always been in dispute between the Russia and Japan, right? Since long time. So Kuril Island, so they may ask you that Kuril Island dispute is between which among the two countries? So the correct answer would be Japan and Russia, number one. Number two, they may also ask you that it is located in which ocean? So it is Pacific Ocean, to be specific, North Pacific Ocean, near Hokkaido Island, which is the northern, located at the northern part of Japan, right? At the same time, they may also ask you that it is sandwiched between which two seas? So it is sandwiched, or it is situated between Sea of Okhotsk and Pacific Ocean. As you can see, this is the Sea of Okhotsk and this is the Pacific Ocean, right? So this article, came in the Hindu, and it's very, very important. So recently, guys, because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Japan also, took this opportunity, and in its diplomatic blue book for 2022, it described Kuril Islands, as being under Russia's illegal occupation. So even Japan is, pushing its ante. Although we know that you may not be knowing that there is an article in Japanese Constitution, Article 9. Guys, there are in total 103 articles in Japanese Constitution, and these 103 articles are divided into 11 chapters. Very important. I'm talking about the present Japanese Constitution. It has 11 chapters, and in all 103 articles. One article, Article 9, talks about renunciation of war. Renunciation of war. We all know, students, that Japan was defeated in the Second World War post the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, Nagasaki in the month of August 1945. Now, after the defeat of Japan, it was being occupied by the Allied forces. We all know that there were two camps in the Second World War, Allied camp and the Axis camp. Allied camp was being headed by America and Britain and France, etc., the Western nations, and the Axis camp was being headed by Germany, Austria-Hungary, right? So after the defeat of Japan in the Second World War in 1945, it came into direct control or occupation of the Allied forces, right? Now, post this, and definitely we all know that Hiroshima, Nagasaki, were being devastated because of the atomic bombing. And post that, Japan decided that it would not wage a war against any foreign country on its own. And therefore, they adopted an article called as Article 9 into their constitution. However, their constitution, was being framed by an American general called as General Douglas MacArthur. So General Douglas MacArthur was being tasked to frame the constitution of Japan, and he framed the constitution. He was an American general, US general, appointed to frame the constitution of Japan, and he actually framed the constitution, which came into force on 3rd of May 1947. Guys, this is very important information. You may not find in newspapers, etc. So very important to be noted upon. On 3rd of May 1947, the same year in which India got independence, Japanese constitution also came in force, and it was drafted by an American journal named General Douglas MacArthur. It has 103 articles in 11 chapters, and Article 9 talks about renunciation of war. So Japan decided never to attack, to any foreign country, but definitely if a foreign country attacks it, it would always retaliate, right? So therefore, they don't have their regular armed forces. They have something called as SDF. SDF stands for Self-Defense Forces. Self-defense forces. They don't have regular forces, but they have self-defense forces, and they have given up. They have renunciated the war. So in this way, the Japan is actually following the pacifist policy. They would never, wage a war against any foreign country on their own, but they would always retaliate if a foreign country attacks them, right? So therefore, Article 9 is something which is very important. So when Russia is invading Ukraine, in this backdrop, Japan also, in its diplomatic blue book published in the year 2022, just a while back, they described that Kuril Islands are being under illegal occupation of Russia. Very, very important. So in this way, Japan is actually being opportunistic in this sense. And this is the first time in about 2 decades that Japan has used this phrase to describe the dispute over the Kuril Islands. Right. So let us understand the dispute. So this was the article, as you can see on the screen. Now this is the geographical map of the island and how the dispute is between Russia and Japan. As mentioned in my earlier slide, the Hokkaido Island and the northeast of it is the the Kuril Island, and here you have the broader image of the same, the Kuril Island group. Guys, in this there have been many developments starting from the year 1855. In the year 1855, a treaty of Shimoda came into being, and this treaty, gave southern Kuril to Japan, and rest of the island chain to Russia. That means here you can see 1855, the southern part, which you can see in yellow, was given to Japan, and the northern part was being, given to, this is the same island group of island. This is the island chain. The northern part was given to the Russia. That time it was called as the Soviet, and the southern part was given to Japan, right? The Treaty of Shimoda. However, it would be very difficult to actually remember these things, and it may be important for the student preparing for UPSC. For for the law aspirants, you must remember the dispute between the two countries, that is Russia and Japan, and in which sea it is situated, and it is sandwiched between Sea of Okhotsk and Pacific. But for the benefit of all the student fraternity, I would be, explaining this anyhow. Anyways, you have to read this article in the Hindu. So, Treaty of Shimoda has given the southern islands of the Kuril chain to Japan and the northern islands to Russia. 1875, almost 20 years post the Treaty of Shimoda, Treaty of St. Petersburg came into force, and it ceded all the Kurils to Japan. That means you can see here 1875, all the islands which were earlier their part of Russia were given to Japan, right, in exchange of Russian jurisdiction over Sakhalian. So this is a part called as Sakhalian. In 1855, Sakhalian Island was under joint administration. Means Japan and Russia, they both were administrating the Sakhalin Island as per the Treaty of Shimoda. But in Treaty of St. Petersburg, Sakhalin Island was completely given to Russia. Coming to 1905, Russo-Japanese War. In Russo-Japanese War, after the defeat of Russia, because Russia was defeated and in Russo-Japanese War, and Japan has, gained the control of southern Sakhalin. As you can see, Sakhalin, which was completely with Russia till 1875, Japan got the control of southern part of Sakhalin post the victory of Japan in Russo-Japanese War. Then coming to 1945, the Soviet Union occupying the entire Kuril chain. Because 1945, you all know, that Second World War happened and Japan got defeated. Post 1945, Soviet actually, occupied because Soviet was with the Allied forces, right? The Soviet was with Allied forces in the Second World War. So post the defeat of Japan in the Second World War, as I explained earlier, the Soviet occupied the entire Kuril chain and southern Sakhalin after declaring war on Japan during the final days of Second World War. So this was the situation in 1945, as all the Kuril Island chain was being occupied by Russia, including the Sakhalin Island. ठीक है, तो कुछ भी नहीं बचा था जापान के पास after its defeat, after when it was defeated in the year 1945, right? So nothing was left with Japan. But then something happened in the year 1951, the Treaty of San Francisco. इसके अंदर Japan renounced the claim to Kurils in the Treaty of San Francisco, signed between Japan and the Allied powers. The Soviet Union does not sign, and Japan later claims that the 4 southern islands are not the part of the Kuril chain, right? So in 1951, Japan actually, given up all the claim to these Kuril Islands, but the Soviet actually didn't sign it. And Japan later, claimed that the 4 southern islands of the Kuril chain are not part of the Kuril chain, right? That means Japan believed that they are its own territory and they are not part of the Kuril chain. Coming to 1956, the Soviet-Japanese Joint Declaration. Now, in the Soviet-Japanese Joint Declaration, 1956, it restored the diplomatic ties between the two countries because of the tense relation. And we all know that, possibly I would have mentioned that Japan was under Allied occupation. It was under Allied occupation. Allied occupation means it was under the occupation of the Allied forces because it was defeated from 1945 till 1952. So till 1945 till 1952, it was under Allied occupation. And in the year 1947, the Constitution of Japan, also called as post-war constitution, that is the present Constitution of Japan, also called as post-war constitution or peace constitution, which was actually, drafted by an American journal named Douglas MacArthur, came into the year 1947, right? So till 1952, it was under Allied occupation. Around 10 lakh American and British Commonwealth soldiers were stationed in Japan, right? So in 1956, when it got, became its own sovereign country, and the Allied occupation got over, there was an agreement or declaration between Soviet Union and Japan, and it restored the diplomatic ties between the two countries, right? The Soviet Union agreed to cede islands of Shikotan and Habomai to Japan. तो जो कुरिल आइलैंड्स में से कुछ जो आइलैंड है, जैसे कि शिकोतान एंड हाबोमाई, they were being given to Japan after signing of formal peace treaty. Japan claims territorial rights to all the 4 southern islands, and no agreement is yet signed, right? So the Soviet actually in this treaty agreed to cede islands of their 2 islands which were given to Japan, but Japan actually claims all the islands of the Kuril group, Kuril chain, and till date no agreement or no ratification has come into being. So therefore this article actually came into the news, and in the backdrop of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Japan is also being opportunistic in actually claiming the islands and the Kuril chain, and Japan has elevated its claim over the Kuril Islands, which are currently under the control of Russia. So currently they are under control of Russia, but it has elevated its claim. And as I recently mentioned that in its Blue Book, recently released a few days back, it has clearly said that Kuril Islands are under the illegal occupation of Russia, right? So very, very important. I again expect a question on this. Kuril Island, right? So you have to just go through this article, very important one, surfaced in the Hindu newspaper. I hope it is clear. All right. So the same I have described, and this is what I was actually explaining you, that Kuril Island, how it is being sandwiched or situated between Sea of Okhotsk and the Pacific Ocean towards the northern part of Japan, right? And it's a dispute between Russia and Japan. And there are many agreements which were being signed between Russia and Japan, like Yalta Agreement of 1945, Potsdam Declaration 1945, as proof of Russian sovereignty over the Kuril Island, because since Second World War, Kuril Island has been under the Russian occupation, although it is a disputed territory. And so it's just explained here, right? Guys, coming to the next news article, state versus center on the vice chancellor selection. We all know that the Constitution of India, we have the nominal executive in the state called as governor, right? And the governor in all the states is being appointed by the president on the recommendation of the prime minister, right? So governor acts as a bridge or link between the center and the states, right? He is the nominal executive head of the state government, although he is being appointed by the center, right? In this way, he wears two caps. He actually performs two roles. One as the nominal executive of the state government, second as the agent of the center. Why as the agent of the center? Because of the reason that he is being appointed by the central government, right? So it is very clear that because he is appointed by the central government, so there would be undue influence of the central government in the functioning of the states, right? So although the states are autonomous, we are a federal country, and Schedule 7 actually declares India to be a federal country. We have list 2, which talks about the state list, right? All the subjects over which the state government can make laws. But because the governor is being appointed by the president, so therefore he would always, work on the whims and fancies of the central government, right? Now, there is a power of the governor, which actually, is about appointing, vice chancellors in the state universities. Now, there are many extra constitutional powers, which extra constitutional means they are not mentioned in the constitution. For example, governor is, by virtue of his position, chancellor of all the state universities in the state, right? तो जितनी भी यूनिवर्सिटीज स्टेट यूनिवर्सिटीज होती है, फॉर एग्जांपल यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ राजस्थान, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ कोटा, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ उदयपुर, so the chancellor would always be the governor. It is a constitutional provision, although not mentioned in the constitution, but it is an extra constitutional power being given to the governor. So governor is the chancellor of all the universities, and in this position he actually appoints the vice chancellors of the state universities, the second highest position in the university, the vice chancellor. So there is always a interference of the governor in the appointment of, because he is appointing the vice chancellor, so there is always the interference of the central government, right? Because of the reasons which I just mentioned. Now, this has actually led to the undue interference of the central government, and there are many states which are amending the laws, and they are, even the Tamil Nadu recently has passed in fact 2 bills proposing to take away the governor's power to appoint the vice chancellor of state universities, right? So that means from now onwards, I mean, in the state of Tamil Nadu, it is the state government of Tamil Nadu which would be deciding over the appointment of the vice chancellor of the state universities and not the governor, right? And there are other states also which have done this. So this article, which actually surfaced in Indian Express. So as I say, guys, that we here at ClatPrep do not limit ourselves to the Hindu, but we also cover important news articles from Indian Express, another prominent newspaper in the country. So therefore, Tamil Nadu government has come up with a new law which would actually take away the powers from the governor in appointment of the vice chancellor, and from now onwards the Tamil Nadu government would be appointing the vice chancellor of the state universities, right? However, earlier it was the power of the governor, right? So as you can see, it also came in today's Hindu newspaper that currently the governor, who is also the chancellor of the state universities, appoints the vice chancellors from a panel of 3 names recommended by the selection committee, right? But the many states like Gujarat University Act 1949, Telangana University Act 1991, which empowers the state government to appoint the vice chancellors. Similarly, Karnataka has also passed the same act, as I just mentioned, in the year 2000, to which vice chancellor shall be appointed by the chancellor with the concurrence of the state government. Right? In this way, it becomes very important, right? And guys, very important, this was also being suggested or recommended by the Panchi Commission on the center-state relation. Very, very important. Panchi Commission on the center-state relation. They may ask you that which among the following commissions were being set up by the central government to actually reform the central-state relations. So the answer would be Panchi Commission, and it actually tried to reform the post of governor. For example, they recommended that the governor must have a fixed tenure of 5 years, because they are appointed by because governors occupy the office on the pleasure of the president. That means they are appointed by the president and they can be removed anytime by the president. And the president also works on the whims and fancies of the prime minister, right? So therefore, they always occupy the office during the pleasure of the president. So they don't have a fixed tenure. So Panchi Commission recommended instead that the governors should have a fixed tenure, right, of 5 years. They also recommended that their extra constitutional powers like chancellors and they appointing the vice chancellor must be ripped off, must be removed, so as to eliminate the undue influence which is there being seen in various states. Panchi Commission. So in total, guys, 19 states including Tamil Nadu had accepted the recommendations of the Panchi Commission, and recently, as it is in the news, Tamil Nadu government has also passed an act by which they have ripped off the powers, taken away the powers of the appointment of the vice chancellor from the governor, and now it would be decided by the state government. I hope it is clear, right? So this is an important article in today's Hindu. Also, it is there very much on the front page, so you can just go through this article. I hope it is clear, guys. So this is there, and however, as per the UGC regulations of 2018, the visitor or chancellor, mostly the governor, in states shall appoint the vice chancellor out of the panel of names recommended by search cum selection committee. So UGC regulation says about the governor and his role in actually appointing the vice chancellor. There are also, guys, interference of the central government. Why? Because of the important reason that education comes under the concurrent list. When I say concurrent list, it is very clear that both the center as well as the states can make laws over the concurrent list subjects. That means both the state assemblies as well as the parliament can make laws over the concurrent list subjects. But in times of conflict, in times of dispute, the law of the parliament shall prevail, right? At the same time, the executive power over the concurrent list subjects is with the state government. That means they would be executed by the state government, right? So education, guys, comes under the concurrent list, and it is under the but also entry 66 of the union list talks about the coordination and determination of the standards in institutions for higher education or research and scientific and technical institutions, and it gives the center substantial authority over the higher education. We all know that education comes under the concurrent list, but then you also have entry 66 of the union list, which actually gives the power to the parliament to set the standards of education in the institutions for higher education, research, scientific and technical institutions, and in this way it gives the center substantial authority over the higher education. So especially for the higher education, the central government has substantial authority. I hope this is clear. So, so this is all about the same. So you can just go through it. I hope it's clear. That's all for today, guys. I hope the session was interesting. Do like, share, and comment. Press the bell icon for the regular updates. This is all for today. Wish you all the best. See you in the next class. Good day. Goodbye.